Well, good morning, Watershed. Good morning. My name is Kim Honeycutt, and I'm on the teaching team here. But my regular job, what I do the majority of the time, I am a psychotherapist. I also want to let you know, now that I know that y'all are under-caffeinated, I want to let you know that I'm under-medicated. So listen, I ran out of my Ritalin about 10 days ago. I rationed one for today. So I saved one pill. I took it this morning. We should be okay for the next 3 hours together. I'm not really going to spend 3 hours, but the next 3 hours of my life, I should be a little calmer. But we're going to find out. So if this doesn't go well, it's because of the medical system. All right? All right. Good. Okay, I'm really excited about this series, If Not for a Woman. But before I talk about that, I want to thank somebody. If not for a man named Nance, my beautiful wife and I would not be here in this church. See, John showed up here. He's a psychotherapist, and he's a gay man. And he showed up here years ago. And he started gently pushing what this church understood about homosexuality. And he kept talking to Matt and to Donna and Taryn and Scott, and in time, they found truth. And that John made sure that we are no longer in this church considered in the other category. So I want to thank John tremendously for what he did. For those of us, when we're not in this church, we're considered an other. John also has been a couples therapist for my wife and I. About 2 weeks in, my beautiful wife, Larissa, and I dating, about 2 weeks in, we decided to do couples therapy. Wait before you make fun of me, wait. Not because of how we treat each other, but because of how we knew others would treat us when we went public. And everything that we thought would happen did, and even more. And so y'all have been such a part of us reconciling that and being able to be in a place that's safe and it's healing for us. So when Larissa and I started dating, outside the complexity of all the gay stuff, I just wanted to get to know her, right? So I asked a question. I need y'all help with this. I think this is a simple question. We were dating. It's what you ask when you date. I said, what is your favorite color? That's all I said. And she said, it depends on if it's the color of clothes, or is it a wall or a car? What? Is there that many Enneagram 4s in here? I mean, look at y'all. Y'all should start crying together now. And like, it was all this. She's like, what about the glitter ozone that day? And I'm like, what is happening? So I'm going to ask y'all this. If you are here today and you know me really well, don't answer this immediately. Give other people a chance. But what do you think my favorite color is? I've had the same favorite color since I was little. It's one color. It's throughout my life. It is simple. All right, so y'all get to guess. What do you think my favorite color is? Green? All right. Blue? Green? What? Red? Okay. Thank you, Jack. Anybody else? Anybody that knows me really well? Pink. And then everyone goes, oh. What is that? Every time I tell somebody pink is my favorite color, like the little head just goes like, it's just shocking to people, but I get it. Like, I don't fit into a gender box. I don't fit into any box. And so it's just always been different of how I see and hear things. And at the age of 5, I asked my mom, I said, what do I have to do to be treated the same way as my father and my brother are treated when we're out in public? Because I could see that they were given different eye contact and different vocabulary was used, and they were treated differently than how I got treated. And I need you all to know that's the last smart thing I ever said. It's true. I got dumber and dumber as I got older. So when I was 16, 17 in high school, I was in this advanced algebra class. Okay, this is Fort Mill, South Carolina. So it was advanced because that's where we are. It's probably what y'all do. It's probably what y'all do like in 3rd grade. All right, but for us, we're a bunch of little privileged little brats, all right, and we're in this advanced algebra class. I don't even remember the name of it, but it was like unit circle and cosine and tangent. You remember that? Yeah, y'all in 2nd grade. You don't even remember. Okay, so it was all this stuff, and an algebra teacher came in, Mrs. Ledford, And I don't know why she asked us this. It had nothing to do with math. But she said, hey, I want to give y'all a scenario and tell me if you come up with an answer. Okay, so she said, and I hope this doesn't trigger anybody, but she said, a father and son are in a car accident. And that they're both okay, everybody. And they are brought into the emergency room, and the son needs surgery. So the surgeon comes out to talk to and prep and all this stuff for this boy for his surgery. And the surgeon comes out and looks at the boy and says, I can't do surgery on him. This is my son. She said, who was the surgeon? And we all just stared at her, including me. Like, back then, my understanding of gender was very simple, male-female. It has expanded now, but that's all it was. And so if it wasn't his father, it had to be his mother, and none of us, including me, even thought of that. And see, today I understand is because in my life, I've been taught to disown parts of myself, to disavow certain things about who I am. And it actually happens to all of us, that we get told if you don't disown something about yourself, your family, your system, the structure you're in, if you don't repress that, they won't love and accept you. Some people are taught that you're too sensitive, so you learn to disown your emotions. People are taught you're too dramatic, so you stop feeling and become numb about what you're actually experiencing. You stop sharing about it. And for a lot of us, it's also, you have masculine and feminine qualities inside of you and traits. Everyone does. But think about the systems and the families that tell you that you have to be in one box. And we learn to very much disown who we are. So if you are here today at Watershed, and you are a cisgender, heterosexual, Caucasian, able-bodied male, thank you. We need you. We need you here. If you're here, you're evolved on some level to be at this church and in this community. And if you're here because you know what it's like in any part of your life to be considered and treated like an other, thank you. You're part of my healing process. You're part of me reconciling who I am. So we have talked a lot in any church, anytime about divine masculinity. I think we know what that is. And last week, Dr. Jennifer Garcia gave such a great explanation and thoughts on divine femininity. And I think we have an understanding of that, and my sister Sean's going to speak even more about that next week. So I want to talk about divine, because divine means God. It means godlike. It means delight. But I want to talk about divine otherness. I want to talk about what it's like to delight in parts of you that you were once told to disown that you now get to own. And now you get to delight in other people's otherness as well. So there's 2 books that I want to show you for a second. Because part of me reconciling and finding delight in my otherness has been a type of psychology called transpersonal psychology. So if you've been here for a little while, you've heard me explain that. But trans means beyond. Personal means personality. So it means going beyond your first understanding of self, your first personality that other people tell you you have to be. And in transpersonal psychology, you go beyond your first self and you go to a conscious self, a higher understanding of self. So it is about you, and then it allows you to go and let it be about others as well. And so transpersonal psychology is also, so you know, it's the intersection of theology and psychology. So it's these 2 books. This is the Bible of Psychology. It's the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. We call it the DSM. Please know I had to borrow this because I don't have one of these, because it does not define me and it doesn't define you. But what this does is every mental health diagnosis is in here, and what criteria you have to meet in order for me to give you that name or give you that label is inside of here. For PTSD, bipolar, misadjustment disorder, whatever it is, it's inside of here. And then I have my Bible. Both of these books, both things that have been such a part of me finding answers, me learning to celebrate my otherness, both of these books are against me in some way. That until the early 1970s, homosexuality was considered a mental illness. For 2 decades, people fought. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender people fought against the American Psychological Association to get homosexual taken out of that book. Because what they decided was mentally ill. It said gay people could not hold down a job or stay in a long-term relationship. And so people consistently kept going in front of them and protesting and fighting to show that they did not meet that criteria. In 1973, 1974, the word homosexual was taken out of that book. And we know in 1946, a group of people got together and they took two words in the Bible that I will never be able to pronounce, ever. They took those two words and they mistranslated it, misdefined it, and they decided it meant homosexual, and they put it in the Bible. Both of these books at times have been against me. And part of this is why is that most times when there's a committee, when there's a group of people that get together to decide what criteria goes in these books, what canons go in these books, they are usually people, men, who all have a lot of commonality. Most of them look the same, act the same, have the same life experiences. So everybody at your table agrees with you, then not everybody's at your table. And so that is what has happened with this. And so I think it's so important for us to know like how we got here. Like, think about this. In the Bible, 600 women are nameless because men decided that they weren't worth enough to put their name in. And in the medical world, since it was all men at that time, if a woman came in and they couldn't name what was happening to her, if her symptoms were beyond their medical experience, they told her that she had what was called hysteria. Y'all listen to this. Hysteria meant that her uterus got bored, which should really be on them, just saying. Her uterus got bored and started roaming around and would press against an organ or something and cause her to be symptomatic. And if her symptoms did not subside, they put her in a mental institution. So the men in psychology, see, we know their names. You've heard of them. You've heard of Carl Jung. You've heard of Sigmund Freud. On him. David Roberts likes him, whatever. You've heard B.F. Skinner. But you know, there are 10 women, at least 10 women that are known for being pioneers in the world of psychology. And in all my years of education, I've heard of 2 of them. 2 of them. So if not for these women that I'm going to tell you about, if not for these women, we would not be where we are in the world of psychology. And the first one is Anna Freud. She is Sigmund, whatever his name is, daughter. But what she did was that through her research and all her work, she expanded our understanding of child therapy. She's also the person who coined the term and defined defense mechanisms. Something that helps us tremendously know what blocks us in relationships and how to get better in relationships. Mary Calkins. Mary Calkins went to Harvard. She took every test, every class, did everything she needed to do to get a degree, but they would never formally admit her nor give her a degree because she's a woman. And she still became the first female president of the American Psychological Association. Lita Hollingsworth. This is a woman who was a pioneer who back then that men believed that women were less intelligent, we were inferior, particularly while we were menstruating. Is that a time to make us mad? Is that smart? No, it's not. So she came up with empirical evidence. She worked hard to prove that we are intelligent every day of the month. And equally, it's true, y'all, equally intelligent. Mamie Clark. This woman is the first black woman to get her PhD from Columbia University in psychology. Not only that, she came up with what's called the Clark-Doll test, which means that she did research on black children of how racism was affecting them. Talk about something significant and important that we need to know about. And then Margaret Washburn, first woman ever to get a PhD in psychology. See, these women, this is divine otherness. These are people who went beyond just who they were told to be and became more, came into their conscious self so that whatever they brought to this world would go beyond even their lifespan. And if there's one word that means the epitome of these amazing women, is a word called atrevida. Atrevida means bold, daring, audacious woman. That's who these women are. And see, how we hear the word other matters Luke 6:31 tells us, do unto others as we will have them do unto us. See, how you hear and how you define the word other in that says a lot about if you've been taught that you have to disown parts of yourself, of how you hear it and see it. I would tell you, most of us women, how we hear that, and they'll put it up, is a different way, which is do to others as your generational traditional role dictates, and don't you dare allow anyone to do something similar for you. That's how a lot of us are taught this, because we're taught to disown our own needs and who we are. And here's what I think is even more painful. So many people, because they've been taught to not get into their own otherness, that when someone else is free in that expression of otherness, they take it as a threat. If they see someone wearing makeup that they think shouldn't, they see someone wearing a dress that they think shouldn't, even if they see someone getting help, going to therapy, a 12-step program, they've been taught it's weak to receive help, that becomes a threat to them. And then we're not safe. How you hear do unto others, how you others in that, has a lot of understanding if you have been told and given freedom to be all of who you are. See, when we aren't allowed to have a sense of self, we just have parts of self. And we get very fragmented. There's a doctor named Dr. Orna. You may know her. She is the psychoanalyst on a TV show called Couples Therapy. It's a reality show. And she calls it Operation Otherness. And she teaches us that otherness is from which the greatest growth can happen when we are able to appreciate, love boldly, daringly, love someone else's otherness and love ours as well. You know, I don't think anything is more divine than if there is something in this world, where it's racism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, there's something in this world that doesn't personally affect you, but you take a stand for it. You do something about that. That is divine otherness. 3 weeks ago, my beautiful wife, Larissa, and I watched 1946, the documentary. And we've been waiting for quite a while for this documentary to come out. And a woman named Rocky, her real name is Sharon, but she goes by Rocky, is the director of this. But it starts with this woman named Kathy Bodock. And that Kathy is this woman who has been in traditional role. Outside of being a woman, she's not in the other category. She's married, she has 2 kids, and she is, you know, as much as women are allowed in women's ministry to go and be themselves, she's allowed to do that. But see, then her husband leaves her, and she finds herself in the category of other, because in a lot of Christianity, being divorced, you're no longer worthy. And so she starts hiking near her house. And every day while she's there hiking, trying to reconcile and deal with the fact that she's now an other and what happened to her life, she sees this woman, and we have a picture of this woman. This woman's name is Neto. And they're both always hiking at the same time. So eventually, they start a friendship. And Kathy, with very much her Christianity and her life experience, starts realizing there's some things about Neto that are different. And starts realizing that Neto is a lesbian and that she has had a different life, and so but they become friends, and she starts to really, they have a deep friendship. And they're aware of their differences, but they're also aware of their connection. And one day, they tell us in documentary that they were about to leave, and so Neto said something along the lines of, I won't be here tomorrow, I'm going to like a 3-day women's RV community event. And so Kathy said, why would that be your community? And Neto told her, because I'm a woman of color, I'm Native American, I'm a lesbian, and your God doesn't like me. And something in Kathy broke. And she knew the God that she loved could not love this amazing woman. And she started doing the research of how we came to the word homosexual, how we came to the word heterosexual. She started doing all this research and pouring into it. And then she wrote a book and started doing seminars. And because she's out there in her divine otherness, Rocky heard about her. And Rocky went to her to hear her speak, and they became friends, and they collaborated to do this documentary in 1946. And I want you to know that the people in this have spent years researching what happened that caused this group of men to decide to put that word into the Bible and hurt so many people. They have spent years doing it. Rocky told us, Larissa and I got to talk to her once, and Rocky told us she slept on couches, she did whatever she could to get food, to take care of herself while she was gardening, all the money to be able to do the documentary. And see, she's willing to do that. And most people won't even travel 30 minutes to get to a church. But she's willing to be in divine otherness and celebrate who she is so that the rest of us can do that as well. There's a type of therapy I want to share with you real quick because it helps us understand why we go from people who are just protective and the otherness to being at a higher level. So I'll explain this to you, but this is internal family system. Some of you may know this. This has to do with parts work. And don't look at that yet. Y'all, don't even look. Me. All right, don't look yet. So I want to tell you, first I want to tell you about core self, right? This is an understanding of your self energy. For us, that's the God within, right? But that we have parts of ourselves. Things happen where we disown parts and we get very protective of ourselves. So this is part of what I want you to understand. Like, think about this. There's certain people you go around and you're just authentic. You can be like, oh, I can just be myself around them. Like, I'm just really calm or grounded. We have fun. And there's someone else comes along and all of a sudden you kind of feel a different part of you come up. You get a little protective. You know you can't say certain things. You can't do certain things. You just don't feel safe. Well, that's the grounding for parts work that Richard Schwartz came up with about 40 years ago. And I happen to have a chart for you. Yeah, they're going to put it up. So this is complex, and this is an old chart, so y'all can find more advanced ones than this, but if you're interested, take a picture of it. But this is the core of internal family systems, just so you can have some understanding of what all this means, that you have your core self, and that is inside of you, that compassion, that connectivity, all those things, that is very much inside of you. But things happen to us in our childhood, or again, there's an exile, meaning there's a core wound. Something happens where you don't feel safe, you get shamed in some way over a need or something that you have. So when that happens to us, we don't want to feel that unworthy, we don't want to feel that pain, and so people develop what Richard Schwartz calls manager parts. Manager parts cover that core pain. They are things like codependency, people-pleasing, being critical, judgmentalness. It's things so that you say, never again will I feel that core pain. Instead, I'll just be really productive. I'll just work a whole lot. And if that stops working and that core pain comes back up, people develop what's called firefighters. That's the part that comes in and puts the fire out, disassociates you, numbs you. It's binge eating, alcoholism, drug addiction, sexual addiction. And those are the things that happen that causes who we really are, that core self that is inside of you, to get covered up. And it causes confusion of understanding who you are and what to do, like if you should apply for a job, not apply for a job. So I don't think anybody explains this any better in the Bible than Paul. So we're going to turn to Romans 7, 14 through 25, and this is a lot, but I do want to read this to you. As you read this and hear this, I want you to think about just this idea of not knowing who you are in moments. The message you've gotten about if you're allowed to be self or not, and how parts of us can lead us in the wrong direction. So this is Paul. I can anticipate the response that is coming. I know that all God's commands are spiritual, but I'm not. Is this also your experience? Yes, I'm full of myself. So just remember, this is actually good. You want to know yourself, but we get taught that you're not allowed to be who you actually are. I spent a lot of time in sin's prison. What I don't understand about myself is that I decide one way, but then I act another, doing things I absolutely despise. So if I can't be trusted to figure out what is best for myself and then do it, it becomes obvious that God's command is necessary. So y'all can hear the parts, right? Think about when you think, the next time they ask me at work to do something extra, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. And they ask you, and you go, yes, what time? Right? Like this is what this is about. But I need something more. For if I know the law but still can't keep it, and the power of sin within me keeps sabotaging my best intentions, I obviously need help. I realize that I don't have what it takes. I can will it, but I can't do it. I decide to do good, but I don't really do it. I decide not to do bad, and then I do it anyway. My decisions, such as they are, don't result in actions. Something that's gone wrong deep within me, that's your exile part, let you know, and gets the better of me every time. It happens so regularly that it's predictable. The moment I decide to do good, sin is there to trip me up. I truly delight in God's commands, but it's pretty obvious that not all of me joins in that delight. Parts of me covertly rebel, and just when I least suspect it, they take charge. I've tried everything and nothing helps. I'm at the end of my rope. Is there no one who can do anything for me? Well, Paul, yes. I know who can do something for you. Me. I can help you, Paul. I can take care of you very much. Here's my number. In case you're available, Paul, I can help you understand your parts of self, right? All right, I'm going to keep reading. Isn't that the real question, said Paul? The answer, thank God, is that Jesus Christ can and does. He acted to set things right in this life of contradictions, where I want to serve God with all my heart and mind, but am pulled by the influence of sin to do something totally different. See, in this last paragraph, it's part of what's used for people who are told that Jesus is always the answer, and Jesus is. But it doesn't have to be Jesus or therapy. It's Jesus and therapy. Okay? Amen? And this is the thing about Jesus. And just know, Dr. Richard Schwartz is a spiritual man. He's not a religious man, but he came up with the 8 C's. And these are these things that start with the word C that are who you are, your self-energy. This is the Jesus inside of us. That there's clarity, there's courage, there's compassion, connectiveness. That is who Jesus is. If you look at the New Testament, every time you see Jesus, if he's going to the woman at the well, if the woman who's touching the hem of his robe, whoever he is going towards, he's going toward the woman who they want to cast stones at, he always carries these 8 C's. He's in that self-energy. See, this is who we really are. This is the Jesus inside of us. And if we believe being full of self is sin, we never get here. This is your divine otherness. And we know there's no one who's walked this earth has been more than an other than Jesus. And so we're allowed to have the divine otherness, delight in what's different about us so that we can do the same for others. Also, what happened 3 weeks ago, after we watched 1946, we woke up the next morning just like you did, and we found out what happened at Club Q. And I came here and spoke that morning. I need y'all to know I could not talk about it. I hadn't reconciled it. I couldn't do anything with it. But pray about it. But to have learned what happened that day and to learn about Jessica and Rich Fierro, and that they are a military family, and that they own a brewery, and that he is a heterosexual, cisgendered Latinx man. And just know in the Latinx community, there's some difficulty with sexual orientation. To be in the military, to know what masculinity is considered in the military, and that this man has reconciled all of his otherness, and he is there intentionally to see a drag show with his family. He's there with his wife, his daughter, and his daughter's boyfriend. And just to know, just to think about this, that this man has saved so many lives, to know that the brewery that they own it intentionally to help people who are classified other have an ownership in a company, and to learn what it's like to be loved and accepted. And the name of the brewery, do you know? It's Atrevida. Bold, daring, audacious people. We know that Rich was there that night when he saw what was happening. He immediately went into action. He attacked the perpetrator. And then another man came along who's Navy named Thomas James, and they both attacked him. And then a trans woman came by and helped by beating that man with her high heels. Hell yeah. and the incredible sadness of what happened. But if not for them, how many more will we have lost? So I think it's important that no one stays nameless. I think it's vital that we continue to remember the names of the 5 people that were lost that day. So I'm going to ask, if you will, just give me a moment of silence. I want to read their names to you. And the first name that I'm reading, he actually was Rich Fierro's daughter's boyfriend. Raymond Green Vance. Kelly Loving. Daniel Aston. Derek Rump. Ashley Paul. See, if not for Thomas James, a nameless transgendered woman and a cisgendered heterosexual Latinx man, this list would sadly be much longer. Archivita. If not for women in the world of psychology, many of us would know what it means to be confident and be included. If not for the men and women and non-binary people who fought for so long to get the word homosexual removed from the DSM. And for those who are continuing to fight to get the word homosexual taken out of the Bible, without them, many of us wouldn't know that we are worthy. If not for transgendered and gender fluid people, we might not know what true courage really looks like. And if it wasn't for John Nance, many of us wouldn't be at this church. And if it were not for my wife, who had to leave a 16-year career at the largest Christian national organization so that she could be herself and she could be openly married to me, I wouldn't know love the way that I do. If it was not for all the people who are refusing to do to others as what was done to them, many of us wouldn't know what it means to be seen and known. If it wasn't for 600 nameless women in the Bible, we might not know that the divine speaks through the silence. And if it were not for Mary, we wouldn't know the hope that we have in Jesus. And if it wasn't for all of you and all of this, then this spiritual community at Watershed wouldn't be the safe, healing, powerful place that it is. So I say to you, Archivita. So I want to do something before we close that's bold and it's daring. And I need you to know you have absolute choice in this. You do what bold and daring looks like to you. But I want you to think about who is it that came into your life and taught you that divine otherness was lovable, acceptable, and allowed. Who is it in your life that told you that you get to be you without apology? See, I want to take this time for us to shout that to the mountains of the fact that we are allowed to be different and unique and to be in our otherness. And so I'm going to ask you, if there's a name on your heart, and this is an opportunity for them to not be nameless. And you may stay in your seat and just say it in your head, and that's absolutely beautiful and fine. But you may decide, in the name of Archivita, to stand up and say their name out loud. You do whatever way that you want to do. If you're online, if you want to write the name in, wherever you are. But this is our opportunity to know that otherness is divine. So I'm going to start. David Roberts, Archivita. That's not fair. Love you. Dear boss. Acha vida. Acha vida. Thank you. Maxine Williams. Acha vida. Diane Mallory. Joanna. Glennon Doyle. Yeah. Billy Porter. Amen. Victoria Blackbird. Acha vida. Bob Hoffman. Thank you. Laura Berwick. Thank you. Acha vida. Jennifer Andrews. Justin Lee. Acha vida. Thank you. Thank you. Tina? Hadisi. Thank you. Acha vida to her. Audrey Lord. So I will end with one final name, and then we'll pray. Señor de Carmen Bedini, mi madre. Acha vida. Let's pray. God, we just want to shout to the mountaintops that being other is divine. We thank you that within us there are many different parts. And you've called us to be bold and daring and to love and accept others, because that is what the divine other of Jesus has done for us. I pray that there's a truth that can come inside of us today, Lord, that exposes anything that we've been told to disown because it's part of your purpose for us. I ask that we give breath to those parts, that we give life to those parts, that you put CPR on those parts of ourselves, and there's nothing about us that we have to disown. I pray for those who were injured that day at Club Q. I pray for those who now have PTSD for the rest of their lives, Lord. And those of us who just hearing about it just don't feel safe. And I thank you that Watershed is a place that we walk into, knowing that for a little while, we get to be here and show up as ourselves, our true selves. That this is a place of compassion, a place you bring clarity, a place where love, grace, and mercy is abound, Lord. Help us to know how to take all of this and to truly have a sense of self enough that we know that you've declared us good enough. Help us to take that and make it into action, to be the person that can do in whatever way it looks what Rich Fierro did that day. We know that you did not send your son to this earth for us to have to play small. So God, we want the masses to know that you are God and that you live inside of us. May that not be a threat to anyone, but instead a place of connection. I pray, Lord, everyone here as we go through this week will delight in our otherness and in other people's as well. We thank you that we are who you said we are first. And that is a divine truth. It's in your son's name, the name of Jesus, things are prayed. Amen.